Men carry a quiet tension. You know what must be done, and you feel the pull to avoid it. This friction is not a flaw, it is a signal. Discipline is not comfort, it is pain chosen with open eyes. To do what you hate, as if you love it, is the beginning of command. Most turn away from this demand. Stay, something must be settled here. Lesson 1. Discipline is doing what you hate, like you love it. Discipline is pain, but not all pain is equal. Some pain dissolves a man, some pain defines him. The difference is not in the sensation, it is in the choice behind it. There is pain that arrives uninvited, the pain of avoidance, the pain of delay, the pain of watching days pass while knowing you did nothing with them. This pain weakens because it carries no decision. It is suffered passively. It teaches nothing. It only erodes. A man who lives inside this kind of pain becomes soft without realizing it. He complains about pressure, yet he has never applied any to himself. Then there is pain chosen deliberately, the alarm in the dark, the weight that strains the joints, the work done when the mind begs for escape. This pain also burns, but it builds. Because inside, it is a sentence, I decide. This is the pain behind discipline is doing what you hate, like you love it. Not because you enjoy it, but because you obey it. Most men misunderstand this. They wait for motivation. They wait for passion. They wait to feel aligned. They want pain to feel meaningful before they accept it. But discipline is not an emotional agreement. It is a contract signed in advance. The mind will protest. The body will resist. That is expected. That is the point. Pain that shapes always carries friction. If there is no resistance, there is no forging. A blade is not formed by comfort. History has already tested this. Every structure that stands was assembled under stress. Muscles, character, reputation, authority, all carved by pressure. The man who avoids pressure avoids becoming anything solid. There is a moment every day when this choice appears. The moment when the easier path opens its door. Sleep instead of movement. Delay instead of action. Distraction instead of focus. No one sees this moment. No one applauds it. Yet this is where the shape of your life is decided. Discipline is pain with direction. That is the dividing line. Pain without direction rots. Pain with direction refines. Most men feel pain either way. Few choose the kind that makes them harder to break. The mind will argue. It will present reasons. It will negotiate. It will offer tomorrow. This is why discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, is not about affection. It is about authority. You do not ask if you love breathing. You do not ask if you love gravity. You obey reality because it does not negotiate. Discipline demands the same posture. There is one sentence that separates the two kinds of pain. Pain is inevitable. Shape is optional. The weak man experiences pain and gains nothing from it. The disciplined man experiences pain and converts it into structure. Same sensation, different outcome. This is why comfort is dangerous. Comfort promises relief, but it quietly collects interest. Every avoided discomfort returns later with weight added. The debt always comes due. The man who refuses small chosen pain will meet large unchosen pain. Discipline is pain, but it is pain taken voluntarily. And voluntary pain is the only kind that grants control. The difference between a man shaped by pain and a man broken by it is simple. One stepped forward, the other waited to be pushed. And the world never stops pushing. Lesson 2. Discipline is doing what you hate, like you love it. Discipline is pain. And the first enemy of this pain is the idea of waiting until you feel ready. Most men live under a quiet illusion that one day they will wake up and feel prepared, focused, motivated, certain. They believe action begins after alignment, but alignment is a luxury of comfort. Reality has never waited for a man to feel ready. Time moves, responsibility accumulates, consequences mature in silence. Readiness is not a prerequisite for discipline. It is a reward earned after obedience. The man who waits to feel prepared has already chosen delay, and delay is a soft form of surrender. It feels harmless. It feels reasonable. It feels like patience. But beneath it sits avoidance wearing respectable clothing. There is a difference between hesitation and consideration. Consideration ends with a decision. Hesitation ends with another day lost. The disciplined man understands this distinction. He moves before certainty. He acts while doubt still speaks. He does not demand emotional agreement before execution. He understands that the mind follows the body more often than the body follows the mind. This is why discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, is a practice of movement against resistance. You will not feel ready to lift, to write, to confront, to build. The mind will always produce hesitation, because hesitation conserves energy. It is ancient. It is efficient. It is also the voice of stagnation. A man learns discipline the moment he stops negotiating with that voice, not by silencing it, but by refusing to grant it authority. The thought appears, not now. The disciplined man hears it and moves anyway. This is the first real fracture in the illusion of comfort. Action becomes independent from mood. This is why motivation is unreliable. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. Motivation arrives when conditions are pleasant. Discipline remains when conditions are hostile. A man who builds only when he feels inspired builds rarely. A man who builds regardless of feeling builds inevitably. There is an uncomfortable truth here. You will often perform your most important actions while feeling wrong, tired, irritated, doubtful, uncertain. This is not a mistake. This is the price of transformation. The work that matters most is almost never preceded by enthusiasm. It is preceded by resistance. History has already tested this. Every craftsman, every soldier, every builder of anything enduring has worked under reluctance. The body complains. The mind bargains. The disciplined man does not argue back. He simply begins, and in beginning, he breaks the spell. There is one anchor sentence in this lesson. Readiness is not the cause of action. It is the consequence. This is the inversion most men never make. They live backwards. They wait for feeling. They wait for clarity. They wait for the perfect moment. The disciplined man creates clarity through movement. He earns readiness through repetition. He manufactures momentum out of discomfort. Look at ordinary life. The morning alarm, the cold floor, the choice to rise or remain. In that moment, no speech is given, no audience watches, no recognition follows. Yet that is where a man either reinforces avoidance or reinforces command. One choice repeated becomes character. Character repeated becomes fate. Discipline is pain because you will move before comfort, before certainty, before love for the task. You will act with distaste, with reluctance, with tension in the chest. That tension is not a signal to stop. It is proof you are facing the correct direction. The man who waits to feel ready will spend his life preparing. The man who moves while unready becomes the one others wait for, and the day will still begin whether you rise or not. Lesson 3. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain, and love has nothing to do with it. Men have been taught to chase passion, to find what they love, to wait until the heart aligns with the task. This sounds noble. It sounds poetic. It is also one of the most effective ways to stay weak while feeling justified. Love is unstable. It rises, it falls. It depends on mood, reward, novelty, praise. Love is generous when life is gentle. But when pressure arrives, love disappears first. This is why discipline is doing what you hate like you love. It is not about emotion. It is about function. A machine does not ask if it loves its purpose. It performs. The disciplined man does not ask if he loves the work. He asks if the work must be done. That is the only question. Everything else is noise. There are days when the body feels heavy, when the mind seeks escape, when the world feels dull. On these days, love is absent. If love is your fuel, you stop. If discipline is your structure, you continue. This is the difference between a man who depends on feeling and a man who depends on command. Most never make this shift. They live in emotional dependence. They need to feel driven. They need excitement. They need inspiration. When these fade, so does their effort. Their lives become a series of half-built things, half-trained bodies, half-formed plans, half-lived potential, not because they lack ability, because they worship feeling. Discipline does not ask for affection. It asks for submission. Submission to the decision you made when your mind was clear. Submission to the standard you set when you still respected yourself. Submission to the version of you that chose the path before comfort began to negotiate. This is why routines matter. Rituals, schedules, non-negotiable actions. They remove emotion from the equation. You do not wake up and ask if you love brushing your teeth. You perform it because it is part of order. Discipline demands the same status. When action becomes part of order, feeling becomes irrelevant. There is a quiet relief in this. When love is no longer required, the burden of emotional performance disappears. You do not need to pretend enjoyment. You do not need to manufacture enthusiasm. You simply act, cleanly, efficiently, without inner theater. History has already tested this. Armies do not rely on love. Craftsmen do not rely on love. Builders of temples, bridges, cities, legacies did not rely on love. They relied on repetition, duty, structure, obligation. Love may visit, it may not. The work continues either way. A man who only does what he loves becomes fragile, because life will always demand tasks he does not love. Responsibility is not tailored to preference. Children do not wait for passion. Bills do not wait for inspiration. Aging does not wait for desire. Reality does not care what you enjoy. Discipline is pain because it asks you to do what is required, despite the absence of love, despite the presence of boredom, despite the presence of irritation, despite the presence of doubt. This is where most turn away. They want alignment before action. They want comfort before effort. They want affection before obedience. One sentence anchors this lesson. Love is optional. Obedience is not. The disciplined man obeys his chosen path even when the heart is silent. He does not need to feel powerful to act powerful. He does not need to feel confident to move forward. He does not need to love the process to submit to it. Over time, something changes. The body adapts. The mind quiets. Resistance softens. Not because you forced love, but because repetition reshaped identity. The work became part of who you are. And what you are, you no longer question. But this comes later. It is never the starting condition. The starting condition is simple. You do what you hate as if you love it, even when you do not, even when you cannot, even when every impulse argues against it. That is discipline. That is pain. And that is where authority begins. Lesson 4. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain. And before the mind can be trained, the body must learn obedience. Most men attempt discipline from the neck up. They try to think themselves into change. They read, they plan, they reflect, they promise, but the body remains untouched. And an untouched body is an undisciplined body. It resists, it delays, it negotiates, it whispers comfort into every decision. The body is older than the mind. It speaks a simpler language. Avoid strain, conserve energy, seek ease. This is efficient for survival. It is disastrous for self-command. A man who does not train his body to obey will find that his thoughts, no matter how sharp, collapse under the first real discomfort. This is why discipline is doing what you hate like you love it must begin with physical obedience. Rising when tired, moving when stiff, working when sluggish. The body learns faster than the mind because it cannot hide behind clever excuses. It either moves or it does not. It either obeys or it rebels. There is no philosophy in a push-up, no debate in a cold shower, no abstraction in manual effort. When the body obeys under command, a signal is sent upward. The mind is no longer the only authority. There is a chain of command. Decision at the top, execution below. This structure is the foundation of discipline. Without it, intention floats without anchor. Desire remains imaginary. Look at a man who has never trained physical obedience. He decides to act. He feels resistance. He stops. He revises the plan. He waits for a better moment. He remains in discussion with himself. This inner negotiation becomes his identity, a man in conversation, not in action. Now look at a man who has trained his body to obey. He decides. He moves. Resistance appears. He moves anyway. He does not consult his mood. He does not require agreement. The body has learned a simple rule. When commanded, comply. Over time, this rule spreads upward. The mind becomes quieter. Doubt loses its leverage. This is not about fitness. It is about hierarchy. Who is in charge? The mind that negotiates endlessly, or the will that issues orders and expects compliance? Discipline is the establishment of internal rank. History has already tested this pattern. Every culture that forged warriors, craftsmen, builders, explorers began with bodily rigor, not because muscles are the goal, but because obedience under strain is the gateway to authority in every other domain. A man who cannot command his own body will not command anything else for long. There is a particular humiliation in physical discipline. The body reveals truth immediately. You are weaker than you thought, slower than you assumed, less resilient than you imagined. This humiliation is not an obstacle. It is a correction. The disciplined man accepts this without drama. He does not pretend strength. He builds it, quietly, repeatedly, without performance. This is where discipline is pain becomes undeniable. The body hurts. Breath shortens. Muscles burn. The voice of comfort grows loud. Stop. Rest. Quit. Enough. This is the exact moment discipline is formed. Not in the movement, but in the refusal to stop when stopping would feel good. One anchor sentence defines this lesson. A body that obeys creates a mind that cannot escape. Over time, the body stops asking. It expects work. It expects strain. It expects effort. Comfort begins to feel strange. Stillness feels suspicious. Ease feels undeserved. This is not obsession. It is recalibration. The baseline has moved. The new normal is action, despite resistance. The world notices this without explanation. Your presence changes. Your words carry weight, not because you speak louder, but because you have proven to yourself that you do what you say. Most men have not passed this test. Their bodies know they are negotiators. Their minds know promises are flexible. Their discipline is theoretical. The disciplined man is not theoretical. He is practiced, conditioned, hardened where it matters, soft where softness is chosen, not where it is default. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, because the body learns first. The mind follows. And once both obey, there is no argument left inside you. Only execution. Lesson 5. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain. And pain becomes permanent when repetition removes choice. Most men treat discipline as an event, a burst, a phase, a sudden declaration of change. They wake up one morning and decide to become different. They attack the day with intensity. They force action. They push hard. And when the initial force fades, so does the discipline. They conclude they lacked willpower. The truth is simpler. They misunderstood the mechanism. Discipline is not built through intensity. It is built through recurrence. The same action, at the same time, under the same conditions, regardless of feeling. This is where pain deepens. Not the pain of effort, the pain of monotony, the pain of doing it again and again and again. When novelty dies, when excitement leaves, when no visible progress appears. This is the pain most men never accept. They can endure short suffering. They cannot endure repetition. Their minds crave variation. Their egos crave visible reward. Their emotions demand feedback. But discipline grows in silence, in routine, in the quiet accumulation of days that look identical from the outside. Doing what you hate like you love it means removing the daily decision. No question, no vote, no debate. The action is already decided. The only thing left is execution. This is why routines are not restrictive. They are liberating. They free you from inner argument. They conserve will. They turn resistance into background noise instead of a daily negotiation. A man who repeats an action long enough no longer experiences it as effort. It becomes identity. He does not force himself to act. He expresses what he is. The runner runs. The builder builds. The disciplined man executes, not because he feels compelled, but because he no longer considers alternatives. History has already tested this. The great structures of the world were not built through occasional intensity. They were built through daily labor. Same stones, same tools, same dust, same strain, year after year. The workers did not need inspiration. They had routine, and routine turned impossible scale into finished form. Most men quit in the season where repetition feels meaningless. They do not see progress. They do not feel change. They conclude it is not working. But repetition always works. The body adapts. The mind reshapes. Identity reforms. Quietly, slowly, without announcement. The only requirement is that you remain. There is a specific pain in repeating something you dislike. The mind says, this is pointless. The emotion says, this is dull. The ego says, you deserve something more exciting. This is the precise threshold. If you stop here, you remain ordinary. If you continue, you cross into a different category of man. Not because of what you did once, but because of what you refuse to stop doing. One sentence anchors this lesson. Repetition is the graveyard of excuses. Once something becomes routine, the voice of negotiation loses its weapon. It cannot argue with a process that no longer requires discussion. You wake, you execute, you move on. No emotional ceremony. No inner trial. No delay. This is why discipline appears simple from the outside. Because it is simple. The complexity lives inside the undisciplined mind. The debates, the bargaining, the postponing, the replanning, the self-justifying. The disciplined man has fewer thoughts, not because he is shallow, but because he settled the question long ago. This does not remove pain. It refines it. The pain of starting becomes the pain of continuing. The pain of uncertainty becomes the pain of inevitability. You no longer ask if you will act. You ask only how well you will perform the action already chosen. Most men never experience this state. They remain trapped in decision, forever preparing, forever restarting, forever explaining why this week is different. They spend their lives opening the door to discipline and stepping back. Discipline is pain because repetition is relentless. It does not entertain you. It does not reward you daily. It simply shapes you while you endure it. And the shape it builds cannot be faked. Lesson 6. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain, and silence is the only environment where this pain can survive. Most men live surrounded by noise, opinions, entertainment, notifications, commentary, constant input. Noise does not merely distract, it dilutes. It dissolves the internal space where decisions become law. A mind filled with external voices cannot sustain discipline because it never hears its own command clearly. Discipline requires a quiet arena, not just external silence, but internal stillness. A space where you confront your resistance without anesthesia. No scrolling to soften the moment. No conversation to blur the discomfort. No performance to gain validation. Just you, the task, and the knowledge that you would rather not do it. This is where discipline is pain becomes most evident. In silence, the pain is unmasked. You feel boredom without escape. You feel reluctance without distraction. You feel the weight of effort without applause. This is precisely why silence is avoided. Noise is comfort. Noise is sedation. Noise is how a man escapes himself without leaving the room. The disciplined man chooses silence deliberately. He understands that without silence, there is no confrontation. Without confrontation, there is no forging. He removes excess sound not to appear calm, but to remove exits. When there is nowhere to flee, you either act or collapse. Most prefer collapse. It feels softer. Silence also reveals something else. The excuses you thought were intelligent sound thin when spoken into empty space. The justifications you rehearsed lose authority when no one is there to approve them. You begin to see your own mind as a restless animal, pacing, bargaining, attempting escape, and for the first time, you do not obey it. History has already tested this. Every man who achieved self-command withdrew from noise, not permanently, not as performance, but as training, the workshop, the battlefield, before dawn, the empty road, the closed door, the quiet room where no one is impressed and no one is watching. This is where discipline was sharpened. Noise creates the illusion of progress. Talking about action feels like action. Planning feels like building. Discussing discipline feels like possessing it. Silence removes this illusion. In silence, only action counts. Everything else is imagination. There is a specific discomfort in silent discipline. You hear your breath. You feel time slow. You notice how quickly the mind seeks escape. Check something, read something, tell someone. Anything to avoid the naked moment of effort. The disciplined man recognizes this impulse and denies it, again and again, until the urge weakens. One sentence anchors this lesson. Silence is not absence. It is exposure. Exposure to yourself without filters. Exposure to your unwillingness. Exposure to your capacity to obey anyway. In silence, you cannot pretend you are disciplined. You either execute or you do not. This clarity is painful. It is also liberating. Men who avoid silence remain untested. They hide in noise their entire lives. They stay busy. They stay connected. They stay entertained. But they never meet themselves without audience. And therefore they never command themselves. The disciplined man builds a relationship with silence. He enters it not for peace, but for sharpening. He learns to work without soundtrack, without commentary, without emotional cushioning. Over time, silence stops feeling empty. It becomes a space of authority, a room where orders are given and obeyed. This is why discipline appears lonely, because it is. No crowd follows you into the moment where you do what you hate. No audience claps when you refuse comfort. No one feels the resistance but you. This solitude is not tragedy. It is proof that the action is yours, not borrowed energy, not social momentum, yours. Discipline is pain, and pain demands privacy. A man screaming in pain seeks sympathy. A man training in pain seeks transformation. Silence is the difference. And once you have learned to endure your own company without distraction, the world becomes quieter, even when it is loud. Lesson 7. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain. And temptation is the moment where all previous discipline is audited. Most men think temptation is about desire. It is not. It is about relief. Relief from effort. Relief from strain. Relief from saying no to yourself. Temptation always appears when discipline has begun to work, when the body is tired, when progress has started, when repetition has become heavy. That is when the mind whispers, "You have done enough. Rest, indulge, delay. You deserve it." This is not weakness. This is biology defending comfort. The body wants equilibrium. The mind wants ease. The ego wants reward. Temptation is the convergence of all three, and it always presents itself as reasonable. It never arrives announcing destruction. It arrives wearing justification. Just one day off. Just one exception. Just one escape. Just one reward. Just this once. The disciplined man recognizes this voice, not as enemy, but as test. Temptation reveals whether discipline is real or performative. Anyone can be disciplined when energy is high and results are visible. Very few remain disciplined when fatigue sets in and reward feels distant. This is where men divide. Discipline is pain because pain accumulates. It does not reset each day. Muscles carry soreness. The mind carries monotony. Time carries wear. Temptation offers to erase this accumulation, to return you to softness, to let you forget why you started. Most accept quietly, without drama. They call it balance. They call it self-care. They call it moderation. The result is always the same. The structure collapses. The disciplined man does something different. He does not argue with temptation. He does not moralize it. He simply refuses to obey it. He acknowledges the desire for relief and acts in opposition, not violently, not emotionally, cleanly, calmly, like closing a door that should not be open. This is where authority is built, not in grand acts, but in small refusals. The refusal to skip, the refusal to delay, the refusal to soften the standard. Each refusal is a reinforcement. Each acceptance is a crack. Over time, the structure either becomes unbreakable or quietly caves in. No one sees the moment. Everyone sees the result. History has already tested this. Empires fall when comfort replaces vigilance. Crafts decay when shortcuts replace patience. Bodies weaken when indulgence replaces training. The pattern is old. Temptation is not new. The response determines everything. There is a subtle cruelty in temptation. It speaks in your own voice. It uses your own reasoning. It presents arguments you might accept. That is why discipline cannot rely on thought alone. Thought can be corrupted. Only prior decision holds. Only pre-committed structure protects. This is why routines matter. Non-negotiable actions, fixed hours, defined rules. They exist to guard against temptation. Not because you lack intelligence, but because intelligence can justify anything. Structure cannot. One sentence anchors this lesson. Temptation does not test desire. It tests command. Command over impulse. Command over relief. Command over comfort. The disciplined man does not feel less temptation. He simply does not grant it authority. He allows it to speak, and then proceeds without permission. There will be days when refusal feels heavy, when saying no to softness feels cruel, when the body aches and the mind complains, and the world offers escape at every corner. This is not misfortune. This is the training ground, the place where men are separated by invisible decisions. Most will not know why they failed. They will say, life became busy, motivation faded, circumstances changed. Only one thing happened. They obeyed temptation when it mattered. The disciplined man does not celebrate refusal. He does not announce it. He does not feel proud of it. He simply returns to the task, again and again, until temptation loses surprise, until it becomes background noise, until comfort no longer feels like a reward. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, because hatred for effort never fully disappears. Desire for relief never fully dies. The difference is not in feeling, it is in hierarchy. Who speaks last inside you? And when temptation knocks, the disciplined man does not answer with words. He answers with action. Lesson 8. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain, and time is the only witness that cannot be deceived. In the beginning, discipline feels dramatic. A declaration, a new start, a sharp turn. You feel the contrast between who you were and who you are trying to become. Every action feels significant. Every refusal feels heroic. But time is indifferent to beginnings. Time does not care about intention. It only records repetition. Most men live inside short timelines, a week, a month, a burst of effort. They measure themselves by immediate sensation. Did it feel productive? Did it feel hard? Did it feel different? But time measures differently. Time watches consistency. It watches whether the action survives boredom, whether it remains when novelty dies, whether it endures when no one is impressed. Discipline is pain, because time stretches pain. It does not let it remain a single event. It turns effort into a line of days. It demands continuity, and continuity is where most structures collapse. Many can suffer once. Few can suffer steadily. Time exposes fantasy. You cannot pretend to be disciplined across months. You either are or you are not. The mirror does not lie. The body does not lie. The results do not lie. Time brings every small compromise forward with interest. Every skipped action, every softened rule, every exception. At first, nothing seems to change. Then one day, everything is different. This is the silent danger. The undisciplined man does not fall in a single moment. He drifts, slightly, repeatedly, comfort by comfort, delay by delay, justification by justification. Time quietly adds them together, and one morning he wakes to find he is far from where he intended to be. No catastrophe occurred, only small obediences to ease. The disciplined man also drifts, but in the opposite direction. Small refusals, small efforts, small acts of obedience. Time adds them as well, quietly, without announcement, without applause, until one day his presence carries weight. His word carries reliability. His life carries structure. No one saw the building. They only see the building finished. History has already tested this. Legacies are not born from single acts. They are laid stone by stone. The man who understands time stops demanding immediate reward. He stops asking if today felt effective. He asks only if the standard was met. He respects accumulation because he knows that time will do the accounting. This is why discipline is doing what you hate like you love it is not a sprint. It is not a challenge. It is not a temporary phase. It is a permanent posture. You do not get disciplined. You live disciplined, or you return to negotiation. Time also removes self-deception. In the short term, excuses sound intelligent. In the long term, they become patterns. The story you tell yourself today becomes the identity you inhabit next year. This is why disciplined men are careful with explanation. They know every explanation rehearses future behavior. There is a quiet confidence that comes from trusting time. You no longer rush for proof. You no longer seek validation. You no longer demand visible progress. You simply execute and let time handle outcome. This is not hope. It is understanding of cause and effect. One sentence anchors this lesson. Time does not respond to intention. It responds to repetition. This realization hardens a man, not into bitterness, into precision. He becomes careful with his days. He respects small actions. He does not underestimate the weight of a single choice repeated. He no longer lives dramatically. He lives deliberately. The undisciplined man fears time. He feels it slipping. He feels it judging. He distracts himself to avoid hearing its footsteps. The disciplined man befriends time. He walks with it. He lets it test him. He trusts that what is built slowly is built to remain. Discipline is pain because time will ask the same question again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Will you obey comfort, or will you obey command? You do not answer with words. You answer with action, repeated, ordinary, unseen, and in the end, time will speak for you. Lesson 9. Discipline is doing what you hate, like you love it. Discipline is pain, and identity is the final territory. Discipline conquers. Most men think discipline is something they do, an activity, a practice, a habit. They say, "I'm trying to be disciplined," as if discipline is clothing they put on in the morning and remove when tired. This is why it fails, because anything you wear can be taken off. The disciplined man does not do discipline. He is discipline. There is no separation, no performance, no switch. His actions are not negotiations with himself. They are expressions of who he has become. And identity is the only structure strong enough to carry pain without collapse. This is where discipline is doing what you hate, like you love it, reaches its final depth. In the beginning, you force yourself. Later, you train yourself. Eventually, you recognize yourself. The task is no longer something outside you, it is part of your shape. Refusing it would feel like tearing skin. Identity is formed through repeated obedience. Not imagined, not declared, built, slowly. Every time you acted despite resistance, you cast a vote for a new self. Every time you obeyed comfort, you cast a vote for the old one. Identity is simply the final tally. This is why most men remain inconsistent. Their identity is inconsistent. One day, they see themselves as strong, the next as tired. One day as ambitious, the next as defeated. Their actions follow these shifting stories. They are ruled by narrative, not command. The disciplined man ends the story. He no longer asks, "What do I feel like being today?" He knows what he is, and what he is, he does. This is why he appears stable, predictable, solid. Not because life is easy, but because identity is fixed. History has already tested this. The blacksmith does not wonder if he feels like a blacksmith. The soldier does not wonder if he feels like a soldier. The builder does not wonder if he feels like building. Their identity settles the question before thought begins. This is what most men never reach. They remain in transition forever, always becoming, never being, always preparing, never embodying, always intending, never living. Discipline is pain because identity demands loyalty. Once you know who you are, betraying that becomes more painful than the work itself. This is the reversal. In the early stages, effort hurts more than avoidance. In the final stage, avoidance hurts more than effort. You have crossed the threshold. This is when discipline becomes quiet, invisible, natural. Not because it is easy, but because it is aligned with self-definition. You do not need reminders. You do not need motivation. You do not need systems. You have become the system. There is a danger here. Identity can decay if not maintained. A blade rusts when neglected. A standard softens when compromised. This is why discipline never ends. It stabilizes, but it never concludes. The disciplined man knows he is always one long surrender away from returning to softness. He remains vigilant, without drama. One sentence anchors this lesson. You do not rise to discipline. You fall to your identity. If your identity is comfort-seeking, you will return to comfort. If your identity is avoidance, you will return to escape. If your identity is command, you will return to action. Always. This is why changing habits without changing identity fails. The surface shifts. The core remains. Eventually, the core reasserts itself. The disciplined man does the opposite. He reshapes the core through repeated action. Then the habits follow naturally. There is no pride here, no ego, no performance, only alignment. The quiet alignment between what must be done and the man who does it without negotiation. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, because love was never the point. The point was becoming someone who no longer asks whether he loves it. He simply does it. Lesson 10. Discipline is doing what you hate like you love it. Discipline is pain. And the final test of discipline is simple. When no one is watching, who are you? In the beginning, a man imagines discipline as visible. He imagines respect, recognition, a hardened image reflected in other eyes. He imagines the disciplined man as a figure observed. But observation is a weak teacher. When eyes are present, performance appears. And performance is not discipline, it is theater. The true measure arrives in solitude. No audience, no praise, no accountability partner, no deadline enforced by consequence. Only a quiet moment where a choice stands in front of you: act or delay, execute or escape. This is the chamber where self-command is either real or imaginary. Most men are disciplined only under surveillance: a boss, a coach, a deadline, a social expectation. Remove the observer, and the structure dissolves. They are not weak, they are untested. They never transferred authority inward. They relied on external force to replace internal command. The disciplined man does not need eyes on him. He has internalized the observer, not as anxiety, as standard. He knows what must be done, and he knows whether he did it. No witness is required. No confession. No justification. Just a private ledger, updated daily. This is why discipline is pain never becomes easy. When you are alone, pain has no distraction, no narrative, no sympathy, no shared burden. The ache in the body, the reluctance in the chest, the voice offering relief. Everything becomes louder in solitude, which is why most men unconsciously avoid being alone with their own decisions. They fill every quiet moment. They fear the empty room because it reveals their true rank. History has already tested this. The men who built anything enduring learned to work unseen, uncelebrated, unnoticed, not because they were humble, but because they understood that dependence on recognition is dependence on noise. And noise is unstable. Praise fades. Attention shifts. Only self-command remains. There is a specific pain in doing the right action when no reward follows, no immediate outcome, no visible progress, no one saying, "Well done." This pain is pure. It is undiluted, and it is the only pain that forges something permanent. Many men can suffer when reward is visible. Few can suffer when reward is distant. Even fewer when reward is invisible. This is the final filter. The man who passes it no longer needs to prove discipline. He lives it, quietly, without signal. This is where the phrase, "discipline is doing what you hate like you love it," stops being instruction and becomes description. He still does what he hates. The resistance does not disappear. The desire for comfort does not die, but it has lost authority. The chain of command is settled. One sentence anchors this lesson. When no one is watching, your actions are your only identity. Not your intentions, not your explanations, not your aspirations. Only action, executed or avoided. The truth is always simple in solitude. There is no pride in this. Pride seeks audience. Discipline seeks completion. The disciplined man does not announce his consistency. He does not display his sacrifice. He does not narrate his effort. He simply does what must be done, even when the world would never know if he didn't. This is the quiet end of the path. Not a victory, not a climax. A settled state, where the question is no longer whether you will act, only how precisely you will execute. No witnesses, no applause, no permission, just command. Subscribe to the channel, not for entertainment, not for comfort, but as a reminder of the standard you chose. New lessons arrive. You either return or you drift.